But just because someone has done some good doesn't make them untouchable, and it does not make them above criticism and critique, especially from their peers in the same community. Hi friends, welcome back to the Avocado Toast Budget. If you are new here, my name is Lexa, and today is part 2 of our series where we are taking a deep dive into the Dave Ramsey financial community. In part 1, we covered all of Dave Ramsey's financial advice and what aspects of those I don't really agree with. But I truly believe when it comes to Dave Ramsey and the financial community that it goes a lot deeper than just the surface level financial advice. And as you probably already saw from the thumbnail and the title of this video, today's video is going to take a look into the question, is the Dave Ramsey financial community a cult? Before we get into it, obviously I want to put up a huge disclaimer up here on the screen. This video is my own opinion, but with that, I didn't want to just spew useless information and not give you guys research to back it up. So everything that I say is backed up with sources, and you can find those in the description box. All of the pictures and video clips that I am using all fall under the Fair Use Act, and I am using them completely free of copyright. I'm not trying to get sued. But with that being said, there is a lot to unpack here, so let's go ahead and get into it. The reason that I wanted to make this video in the first place is because now being in the personal finance community, I see a lot of disturbing and concerning things coming from the Dave Ramsey financial community. This is not a personal attack on anyone in particular. If you support him, this is not attacking you. I am not here for people making rude remarks to other people. I just want to make this video to educate people on the whole story and what is really going on. Because while there is some backlash against Dave Ramsey and there are some people who disagree with him, I think that this is really important and serious stuff that does not get talked about enough. The whole idea for this video came from the research I had already done and some of my personal interactions with people from the community and things that I had heard Dave Ramsey say. Honestly, it wasn't until I started digging deeper that I realized just how problematic that this situation goes. I absolutely realize that saying something is a cult is not something to joke about. I know that people who are affected by these groups are affected for pretty much the rest of their lives, and I don't take that lightly. But when I see these patterns of behavior that cults exhibit in places inside of my own community, I want to make sure to speak up about it. So the list that I'm going to use to make some comparisons comes from cultresearch.com, and it is their list and breakdown of characteristics associated with cults. And they say it on their website, and I want to say it too. This is not to say and diagnose Dave Ramsey financial community as a cult, but it is used to analyze those same patterns and systems that are showing up time and time again that are also seen in other cults. So at the end of the day, it is all about doing your own research and drawing your own conclusions, but I want to bring to light some of the things that I have found. The first aspect of a cult is the group displays excessively zealous and unquestioning commitment to its leader and regards his belief system, ideology, and practices as the truth or the law. This is something that I see time and time again come up in my comment section whenever I talk about Dave Ramsey. People often say, he's helped a lot of people, he's helped millions of people, so why are you criticizing him? He's done a lot of good, leave him alone. But just because someone has done some good doesn't make them untouchable, and it does not make them above criticism and critique, especially from their peers in the same community. As we'll explore later on in this video, Dave breaks it down that his baby steps, his way of looking at things, are the truth. You are supposed to follow them to a T in order to live this life that he is promising you. And anyone who comes up and disagrees with him, calls in and says that their partner, their coworker, someone that they know doesn't believe in his system, he completely degrades them, calls them an idiot, moronic, stupid, and broke.
But all these dadgum broke financial geniuses that work with you, or that'll be at Christmas dinner in your family, well, you need to protect your FICO score.
These are all words that are used to diminish the value of anyone else who disagrees with him in order to make his opinions and beliefs higher than and more important than anyone else's.
Oh my God, you're listening to stupid people.
It's this idea of don't listen to those broke, stupid people. Listen to me because I'm not broke and I am not stupid and I know what is best for you. And because this idea is ingrained in so many of his teachings, people really hold on to that and they cling on to it. And they see any criticism of him as a personal attack. And many times when I have explored this and I have asked people to back up what they're saying, tell me why they feel that way, most of the time, people don't really have a solid answer. The reason that they believe it is because he said it. Aspect number 2 of cults. Questioning, doubt, and dissent are discouraged or even punished. Now, most of the things that I'm referencing here came straight from either his YouTube channel or his blog. I will link, again, all of that stuff in the description box, but we're gonna go ahead and read over it and analyze it here. The first issue that I believe strongly relates to this point is whenever he fired one of his employees for speaking out against the company about their mask policies. I'm going to go ahead and play a clip for you here.
That controversial huge Christmas party thrown by financial guru Dave Ramsey. It was a party where masks weren't required. A former employee of Dave Ramsey is now coming forward saying she was fired after her husband criticized that party. Jeremy Finley continues his investigation tonight.
This employee says what makes this even harder is that she loved working for Dave Ramsey and really believed in the work she was doing. But she says what happened to her is an example of the price that employees pay even if their spouse is critical of the beliefs of the company. Now, a 5-year employee of Dave Ramsey tells News 4 Investigates that she was terminated when her husband was overheard at a dinner saying he felt the way the company was handling COVID-19 was ridiculous because she fears retaliation from the company. As she searches for a new job, she asked we conceal her identity.
I was completely shocked. I was blown away. I had just had a performance review the Tuesday before and had gotten a promotion, had gotten a raise, and was told that I had one of the highest marks in the company.
That employee says she was asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement in exchange for a $20,000 severance package if she never criticized Dave Ramsey or his family. But she didn't sign it, even if it meant losing all that money.
She was fired because her husband spoke out against dangerous no mask policies that Dave Ramsey had. Because her husband had the audacity to question him and doubt him and speak out against practices that have scientifically proven to end up causing harm and death upon other people, she was fired and pushed out. And I have a really good reason to believe that this is true because later on, he was quoted saying, "You are not welcome here if you are willing to do stuff like that." And this stuff that he is talking about is speaking out against his unethical practices. He is objectively not keeping his employees safe, and he is telling everyone that if you have something wrong with that, if you want to speak out against him and stand up for your safety, you are not welcome as part of his group. Questioning, doubt, and dissent are discouraged or even punished. You are not welcome here if you do stuff like that. This woman's husband was not the only one to speak out against his COVID Christmas parties and his no work from home policy. Other people have been reported about speaking up against this. One woman who reported that she had posted on Facebook talking about how concerned she was that her husband wasn't allowed to do the same work that he could be doing from home and he had to go into the office instead during a time where social distancing and working from home whenever possible was crucial to save lives. So this starts to beg the question, if people can't speak up for their safety, then what can they speak up for? His employees also reported that wearing masks in the office was a sign of clear distrust in the company and its leaders. Dave said, "I know what's best for you. I care about you. I don't want to hurt you. So why would you think that I would put you in a compromising situation? You don't know what's best for you. I do." And Dave Ramsey consistently downplays what this really is, speaking out against him putting his employees and other people at risk by calling it gossip. And since he is very strict on his anti-gossip policy, downplaying these legitimate concerns as gossip makes it a lot easier to justify firing people and pushing them out of the group. And in case you're wondering just how important keeping gossip under control is to Dave Ramsey and Dave Ramsey headquarters, he pulled out a loaded gun at a meeting one time to show his serious stance against gossiping, and has since then boasted constantly to his staff about how he carries a gun at all times. I don't understand how this is not seen as a blatant threat to someone's safety. And this is not just gossip. This is not just something that people are saying to make him look bad. This act was confirmed. This happened. Can you imagine your employer, the person who you are relying on to give you a paycheck to make sure that you can feed your family, pulling out a loaded gun during one of your meetings to threaten you to not gossip about him? And he's got a pretty wide range of what he would consider gossiping to be. I don't know about you, but I would go ahead and file that under dissent and disagreement being punished. Under the same point, I want to look at this video about him talking about the effects of COVID-19.
This like little sports class thing that's in our area, and it's so sweet and great, but they had to shut down due to COVID, but then they ended up starting this whole new department of it where
let's reiterate that. They had to shut down because of government regulations, not because of COVID.
I'm sorry, okay, well.
Because the health departments are over the top, lost their dadgum minds. That's why.
It's the Dave Ramsey show. Yes, correct me.
In order for us to really grasp this whole concept, we need to acknowledge the power imbalance that is here. Dave is Rachel Cruz's boss. And I know that most women can relate to being talked over, diminished, and degraded by their male supervisors. She has the nerve to respond with a fact that COVID-19 has caused pretty much the world to shut down at that point in time. And because phrasing it that way doesn't meet his agenda, he interrupts her, speaks over her, and diminishes what she said. That face at 7:15, I know that face. I have been the one making that face when you just know that you have to sit down and shut up in order to keep your job because your white male boss thinks that he's more important. I don't know her, but I do know that look. And my guess is that she understands that she doesn't have the right in that place to speak out against anything he doesn't believe in. And of course you can say it's his show, he can do whatever he wants. But I think we all know that if the tables were turned and that was Rachel who was speaking out over him, that you wouldn't perceive it the same way. I don't think that this issue standing alone would be something to cause an uproar and concern about. I think the issue is that it is not standing alone. It is part of many other concerning aspects of how Dave treats his employees. The third aspect of cults that I want to discuss is that leadership dictates, sometimes in great detail, how members should think, act, and feel. Now, I think the one that is pretty much staring us all in the face to back up this point is the fact that Dave Ramsey fired a woman for having premarital sex. This is not an opinion. This is a fact that they have admitted to. They have admitted that by a woman getting pregnant before she was married, she violated their company policy and was no longer welcome there. A former employee of Dave Ramsey Solutions had came forward and said that she was fired wrongfully for being pregnant. When she told HR that she was pregnant, later she was taken into the office after she had been giving glowing reviews about her performance and let go. And if this tells you how honestly disgusting this is, Dave Ramsey Solutions denied that they fired her for being pregnant and said, no, we didn't fire you for being pregnant. We fired you because since you're pregnant, that means that you had premarital sex, which is against our terms and conditions. I'm sorry, but is that not a red flag to anyone when you are admitting to firing someone because of their sex life? This makes me a little bit concerned and questioning about how you would feel about a woman going home to her girlfriend, but I don't think anyone's ready for that conversation yet. And I can tell you right now, I am in a supervisor position and I'm not even allowed to ask people if they have a different job. It is none of my business what my employees are doing outside of the time that they are at work, as long as it is not affecting their job and what they are doing. And I don't care how far he wants to stretch it, having premarital sex is not affecting your job performance. This is gross and, in my opinion, fits this point of a cult to a T. Another situation where someone got in trouble with Dave about what they were doing in the bedroom is when it came out that his co-host was having an affair. Now, under typical circumstances, Dave Ramsey would just fire someone for having an affair. He says that, he admits it, it's in his terms and conditions of employment. However, this particular co-host is very popular on his show, it probably would have made a lot of headlines. So Dave agreed to allow him to continue being an employee there, as long as his wife and him agreed to waive all confidentiality with their therapist so that Dave and all of his people around him could know what they were talking about and how the marriage was going in therapy. How is this okay? How is this accepted? This is controlling and disgusting and, in my opinion, borderline abusive. If nothing else, it is definitely an abuse of power. So if you're anything like me, you might be looking at this and saying, okay, but if this is actually happening, how is he getting away with it? Well, he has very good lawyers, and Dave Ramsey Solutions is in Tennessee, and Tennessee has pretty lax policies on pretty much what you can fire someone for. So firing someone for being pregnant, not okay. Firing someone for premarital sex, you do you. And Dave Ramsey stands by his ability to do this. He doesn't try to hide it. He has been quoted saying that he is your employer. He gets to tell you what to do. No, Dave, just because you pay someone doesn't mean that you get to control everything that they do. And Dave is very outspoken about the fact that he does do this. He fires people for having affairs. He claims, with a laugh and acceptance, that he can fire people for whatever he wants. He feels untouchable. And he thinks that you should feel that way too. The fourth aspect of cults is the group as elitist, claiming a special, exalted status for itself, its leaders, and its members. In my experience, I have experienced some of this from his followers, but I think the biggest concern about this aspect comes from Dave himself. When Dave was trying to host his COVID-19 Christmas party, which has been all in the news and you guys have probably heard about, one of the controversies was that the first place that he planned on holding his party had issued a mask policy and said that all of their wait staff had to wear masks. Dave didn't want them to. He didn't want anyone to wear a mask. He thought that it would scare away the people who were paying. And he was quoted saying, "We're not going to have someone pay $10,000 for a ticket to have some $8 an hour twerp at Marriott give them a hard time about wearing a mask." It is extremely clear how Dave feels about the people that he claims to serve. Dave is the one who sits there and tells people, get the job that you don't want. Go and flip burgers or deliver pizzas. You are not above any job. And then he calls the wait staff at the Marriott twerps, insinuating that his guests who can afford to pay $10,000 for a ticket to one of his conventions are way above all of those people in the working class. It's disgusting and it's wrong. And it makes it pretty obvious that Dave sees himself and his rich friends as above other people. It's pretty elitist if you ask me. Now, I could do a whole other video, and I might if you guys are interested, about the issues around how much he integrates the Bible into his financial advice. And I don't want to get a lot into it here, but I do want to touch on something that he has said. Someone had called in asking about his take basically on taxes and what the Bible says. I will link it down below just in case you think I'm taking anything out of context, but these are the last 3 sentences. There is nothing following this. He says, "If you think I'm judging, you bet I'm judging. I'm called to judge. And when I see someone who is an idiot, I call them an idiot. If you don't like that, you can turn the channel." You're called to judge, Dave? I thought God was the only one who is called to judge people. Sounds a little suspicious to me. The 5th aspect of a cult that we're going to talk about today is that the group has a polarized us versus them mentality, which may cause conflict with wider society. I think that this point has never been clearer than with this whole mask and COVID situation. As we talked about earlier on in this video, it was definitely not okay for people to be speaking out against him. But he knew that people were uneasy about this. But he didn't think that the issue was with his employees being uneasy about it. He thought the issue was that the people around him and the people around his employees were influencing them to think that it was a bad decision. He was quoted about this saying, "We know that many of you have felt pressure from your families and friends, some of whom think you are weird for still going to work." It's not weird, Dave. It's unethical to be having people work in groups of 50 or more without masks when they could be working from home. But he went on to say that he's proud to be the weird one, the outcast, different from everyone else. The issue isn't him or his beliefs, it's everyone else around him who disagrees with them. He quite literally said, "We understand that your friends and family and the people you care about and are close to you are telling you that there might be an issue here, a safety concern, a red flag, but that's just because we're different and they think we're weird. And we're proud to be weird and not like them. Once again, don't listen to them, listen to me. I know what is best for you. Dave loves seeing himself as weird, as completely different from all of the people who are less than. He even, in this video called Be Weird or Be Broke, how great it is that they are weird, and how if you aren't weird, you're probably one of those other people who are the broke, ignorant, stupid, moronic people. One of the points that I didn't really plan on touching on in this video, but now that I'm talking about it, I think that it is also important and relevant, is the aspect of cults that says the leader is not accountable to any authorities, unlike, for example, teachers, military commanders, ministers, priests, etc. He said it himself. He pays you, so he can do whatever he wants. He can fire people for having affairs, for having premarital sex, for speaking out against him, for saying that they don't feel safe or welcome there, for claiming discrimination, for being broke, different, anything he wants. He feels untouchable. And I do think that that fits here, and it's really important to bring up. The final aspect of cults that I want to discuss in regards to the Dave Ramsey financial community is that leadership induces feelings of shame or guilt in order to influence and control its members. Often, this is done through peer pressure and subtle forms of persuasion. We talked about this briefly, but I really think that this is shown in his employees' claims that they were shamed for wearing masks, for protecting themselves, and for protecting others. And he said multiple times in his blog, and he's been recorded saying it by other people, trying to justify this, saying that he cares about his employees and he would never do anything to harm them. And if they think that he would do something to harm them, they shouldn't be there. This is a really good way to weed out all of the people that don't exactly agree with your thinking and your opinions, which is really concerning, especially when his opinions are just scientifically invalid. He claims in other articles that employees can wear masks if they want, but I don't think that that's true. You can't just claim, oh, you can do what you want, and then have a history of firing people for doing things that you don't agree with. His employees also claim that he warned them not to contact anyone outside of that office about any of their concerns. He claimed if they have any concerns, come to HR, come to him. They're open to talk. Yeah, given his history, why would anyone be concerned about coming to him about something they disagree with? All sarcasm aside, this is really concerning to me. And I'm not saying that this list is an end-all be-all. There are other aspects of cults that you can research in this article if you want, decide if you think that it is a fit with the Dave Ramsey financial community. But for me, there is enough here to show a cause for concern. This us versus them mentality, putting themselves above everyone else, thinking that he is untouchable and he can do whatever he wants because he pays his employees paychecks. It's gross. It's despicable. And like I said, I've already done a video on the financial reasons that I disagree with Dave. And while I do think that some of the advice that he gives financially can have a really negative impact on some people, I don't even think it scratches the surface to what he is doing at his company to his employees. This is gross behavior, and it's apparently going unchecked by the government and the state of Tennessee, and I don't want to see it go unchecked by our community. This is not how things should be. People should not be afraid to speak out. People should not be afraid to say that they do not feel safe somewhere. People should not be worried about the fact that whatever they choose to do outside of work in their relationships is going to impact their job. And no, you cannot do and say whatever you want to your employees because you are their boss and pay their rent. And I am not a huge fan of cancel culture. I don't think that people need to be canceled for no reason, but I do think that people need to be held accountable for their actions, and Dave Ramsey needs to be held accountable for this. At the end of the day, to answer the question of whether the Dave Ramsey financial community is a cult or not, you can claim that it is an opinion. Of course, this list is not the end-all be-all, but I think that this list is a really good start to a conversation that needs to be had in this community. Is Dave Ramsey a cult? Maybe. In my opinion, Yes, but at best, he's an employer that has displayed a long history of very unethical business practices. He has beyond blurred and crossed the line between professional and personal lives, and has shown time and time again that he does not actually care about the people that he takes money from and claims to serve. And I refuse to let it go unchecked any longer. I'm just one voice. Draw your own opinion, do your own research, decide what you think for yourself. But I am going to continue to speak out against him because I think that it is really important. And if you are new to the personal finance community, or you have been a part of Dave's personal finance community and something about it just didn't feel right, just know that that is not the end all be all. There is a personal finance community that is rooted in non-judgmental advice, following your values, and doing what is best for you. Dave Ramsey is not the end all be all. He never has, and he never will be. So if you want to learn how to save money, pay off debt, invest, and finally feel confident with your money without any of the judgment or shame or guilt, you found the right place. Welcome. I am so excited that you are here, and I hope that I can give a different perspective on money, budgeting, and our society as a whole to show you that you are capable of feeling confident with your money. If you want to see more from me, make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.